Jill Valentine is an American Special Operations Agent, SLA, of the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance, of which she is a co-founder and an original member. She is a respected high-ranking operator, owing to her commitment in eradicating bioterrorism and her survival amid the biohazardous outbreaks in Arklay County in 1998. Valentine's father was French, and her mother was of Japanese descent. In the early 1990s, Valentine served in the United States Army and got the attention of recruiters for Delta Force, the nation's primary counterterrorism unit. Although the unit does not enlist women, Valentine was allowed to take part in the 6-month intensive operator training course, where she excelled in bomb disposal and lockpicking and was known for her delicate and nimble though precise dexterity, as well as resilience, courage, and discernment amid danger. This experience made Valentine one of the only women in the world with Delta Force training, capable of dismantling even the most intricate explosives in a matter of minutes. During her time in the U.S. Army, she met fellow soldier Forrest Spire, who she would later work with more closely. She left the military in pursuit of experiences that made her feel alive, as well as to assuage her sense of justice and intolerance for those who harm innocent people. Sometime in 1996, Valentine was recruited by Albert Weskier for the Special Tactics and Rescue Service, SDRS, an elite unit of Raccoon Police Department, RPD, that relied on military veterans and weapons-trained scientists to solve serious crimes in Raccoon City. Despite keeping her Special Forces training and personal life a secret, she made friends with several SDRS members during this time, including Chris Redfield, with whom she developed a close friendship and partnership, and under whom she often demanded to be trained in marksmanship. By July 1998, Valentine became the only woman to join Captain Weskier's Alpha Team as the team's B&E specialist, positioned at the rear in maneuvers with SDRS helicopter pilot Brad Vickers. In the spring and early summer of 1998, Raccoon City was haunted by the deaths of a number of hikers and suburban families, which involved both vicious dog attacks and group cannibalism. With the Raccoon Police Department at a loss, SDRS was ordered into the Arklay Mountains in search of a suspected hideout. Bravo team was sent out on the night of July 23rd, and contact was subsequently lost. The following day, the Alpha team was sent out to investigate their disappearance and continue their investigation, finding the helicopter derelict and its RPD pilot, Kevin Dooley, dead and mutilated. Alpha team was confronted by a pack of dogs, who then killed Joseph Frost. Valentine, along with Weskier, Chris Redfield, and Barry Burton, fled into a nearby mansion, while Vickers, in shock, fled to the helicopter and abandoned the team. Within the mansion itself, the 4-man team split up to explore. Over the course of the night, they independently deduced that the mansion was a cover for a bioweapons research laboratory under the control of Umbrella USA, SDRS' biggest donor. Valentine began to suspect Burton was working against the team, owing to a series of suspicious actions, but later discovered Weskier had manipulated Burton with threats against his family. Weskier was in fact on a mission from Umbrella to retrieve bioweapons research, then destroy the laboratory and kill the SDRS team to silence witnesses. The dog attacks and cannibal murders were found to be the result of the T-virus, a bioweapon which had leaked out into the surrounding area. 14, with Weskier faking his death when activating a renegade bioweapon-designated tyrant. Valentine, Redfield, Burton, and Bravo teams with Beckett Chambers escaped the lab before its destruction on Vickers' helicopter. Once back in Raccoon City, SDRS's request for a full-scale investigation of Umbrella's activities was denied by their superior, Chief of Police Brian Irons. Their investigation was stalled by Irons' stonewalling and burying of reports, as well as Umbrella surveillance, severely restricting their activities. With no support from the American government either, Redfield, Burton, and Valentine traveled to Europe to investigate Umbrella by themselves. Redfield went ahead alone to Europe in late August, while Burton relocated his family to Canada. To shake off Umbrella surveillance and traitors within the police force, Valentine made a pretense of leaving the city for good, returning later undercover to continue Redfield's investigation into Umbrella's underground facility unabated. 2 months after the mansion incident, the investigation was ruined when Raccoon City's water supply was contaminated with T-virus, causing thousands to mutate into zombies. Umbrella took full advantage of the situation and sent an experimental BOWS to test on the survivors. 19. Among these was Nemesis T-02-8T-103, tyrant parasitized by a Nemesis alpha parasite. This creature, nicknamed the Pursuer, was sent into the city specifically to track down and eliminate all SDRS members. Valentine was trapped in her apartment until 27, or September 28, contemplating suicide. Changing her mind, Valentine fled through the streets of Raccoon City. She found Vickers injured by zombies at the Blackjack Bar. He died soon after, when the Pursuer tracked him down to the police station entrance. Exploring the station alone while evading the Nemesis, Valentine soon discovered that it was no longer safe. In the SDRS office, she intercepted an Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service radio signal from Corporal Oliveira and abandoned the police station to investigate, eventually meeting him. Over the course of the night of the 28th, Valentine worked with 3 UBCS members: Captain Mikhail Victor, Sergeant Nikolai Zinoviev, and Corporal Oliveira. She did thus reluctantly due to their association with Umbrella, though it became clear they were merely mercenaries sent out as sacrificial lambs rather than actual employees. Valentine worked with Sergeant Zinoviev and Oliveira to repair a tram they were hiding in. Captain Victor was too wounded to help. Accounts differ on what happened during that search, as one claimed that Zinoviev was presumed dead, and the remaining 3 drove the team to St. Michael's Clock Tower, which had been flagged by the UBCS as an evac point prior to their insertion. The Pursuer attacked the tram, and Victor sacrificed himself with a grenade in an attempt to destroy it. Valentine and Oliveira made out of the wreckage, but the Pursuer stalked Valentine throughout the tower as she tried to ring its bell as a signal. The creature then destroyed the UBCS helicopter to deny her escape. In another fight with the creature, Valentine was infected with a T-virus strain unique to the Nemesis parasites. Valentine was unconscious for 2 days in a chapel within the clock tower, guarded by Oliveira, until she woke up in the early hours of October 1st, understanding that she was infected. Oliveira went to the Raccoon General Hospital in search of treatment, and returned later with a vaccine the hospital staff worked on before they died. While searching through Raccoon Park, Valentine was confronted by Zinoviev, whose survival had been deliberately kept secret to her. He revealed that Umbrella was using the outbreak to test the effectiveness of the BOWS, and so Valentine escaped to Incineration Disposal Plant P, 12A, a dedicated treatment plant for infected biomatter, where she discovered that the city would be destroyed. There, she fought the Nemesis again, now severely disfigured after exposure to antiviral chemicals in the disposal plant. She then activated an experimental rail cannon developed by the Delta Force. The creature was weakened further by Valentine and left for dead after several shots from a Magnum. While at the disposal treatment plant, Valentine found that Zinoviev had stolen an on-site helicopter while another was en route to the city, searching for her on the radio. After finally destroying Nemesis, Valentine then escaped the city with Oliveira and discovered the man looking for her was Burton. Following the destruction of Raccoon City, Valentine continued to support Redfield in fighting Umbrella. By 2003, they had joined a private anti-biohazard service. In February, the group received reports of strange animal attacks near a small village in the Greater Caucasus. Similar to the Arkley incident, Redfield and Valentine investigated the village and found it had already fallen to a T-virus outbreak, leaving a young child, Anna, as the only uninfected survivor, having been hidden by her parents. Many villagers were hiding in a grain silo. Escaping the building, they ran into Weskier, who was also investigating reports for his own purposes. He could not be apprehended, however, due to the sudden arrival of Hunter Deltas. The two did discover from him, however, that the villagers were involved with Umbrella and were storing BOWS Weskier seize Anna's locket and used it to open a safe in her house to get information on the company. They narrowly escaped the explosion of a bomb planted there in case Weskier or someone like him would try to open it. Though Valentine and Redfield had failed to stop Weskier's escape, they did find proof that the nearby chemical works was an Umbrella base. The following day, Valentine and Redfield took part in a large operation with the rest of the private anti-biohazard service to capture the chemical plant and end BOW production there. They arrived to find the biohazard had completely engulfed the facility. Redfield and Valentine caught the attention of Colonel Sergei Vladimir, the former leader of Umbrella's UBCS, and were made to fight TLOS, a computer-aided, armored tyrant. TLOS was successfully taken down against Colonel Vladimir's expectations, and the facility was captured. However, they failed to gain access to Umbrella's data, as Weskier had already wiped its hard drive. Umbrella nonetheless fell, however, when he decided to hand his data over to the U.S. government, leading to the corporation's bankruptcy. In the aftermath of the Raccoon trials, Umbrella's bankruptcy rendered its security forces incapable of preventing a number of rogue employees from stealing bioweapon samples and selling them on the black market. The war on terror saw a gradual shift towards these bioweapons, requiring new methods of combating them. A number of pharmaceutical giants formed the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance in the United Kingdom, which would assist as needed. However, the BSA was far from perfect as a private military company, and they were kept in an observer role during the 2004 Terra Grigia panic by the U.S. government's much larger alternative, the Federal Bioterrorism Commission. Suspecting that the FBC was involved in arming terrorist groups like IL Veltro to build up its prestige, BSA Director Clive R. O'Brien planned a major operation to uncover the truth, but the presence of an FBC mole necessitated the use of deceptive tactics on his own agents. Starting in the summer of 2005, Valentine and her partner, Parker Luciani, were invited to the Italian coast to see the ruins of Terra Grigia, where dead and some still-alive globsters were washing ashore and a vial of T-Abyss virus was found. The corpses in the vial would soon be determined to come from Queen Dido, one of 3 ships used by IL Veltro in the attack, but which had sunk within the FBC's exclusion zone and could not be explored. O'Brien fed false information to the pair that Redfield and Jessica Shiravat were abducted by terrorists while exploring Finland and taken into the Mediterranean. The 2 BSA agents went out to sea in a small boat and found the Queen Zenobia, which was overrun by T-Abyss mutants. The presence of FBC agents on board was quickly confirmed when FBC agent Rachel Foley's unconscious and assumed dead body was found deprived of water following an attack by mutants. Opening a room with an IL Veltro flag and a mannequin strapped to a chair, the 2 BSA agents found they had fallen into a trap and were knocked out by a man in a gas mask. This was in fact Raymond Vester, one of O'Brien's moles within the FBC, whose role in the operation was to steer them towards the truth while giving the impression IL Veltro really did survive. Upon coming to, Valentine and Luciani continued their investigation, but were beaten by Vester at each turn, now without his gas mask to feign ignorance. Vester destroyed the bridge's communication system, set the boat ablaze, and destroyed the emergency communication equipment while blaming IL Veltro. After navigating flooded lower decks above the bilge, Valentine and Luciani eventually succeeded in contacting O'Brien via the radio transmission tower atop the ship. By the time they got the message out, they'd learned that Redfield and Shiravat were en route from the Queen Semiramis. The 4 rendezvoused in the ship's casino, where they were met by Vester in the gas mask. While explaining the nature of the conspiracy, he was shot by Shiravat, revealing her as the spy. Protected by a bulletproof vest but feigning death, he warned Luciani about her. Valentine and Redfield, meanwhile, made their way to the rear of the ship, which housed a laboratory complex. Their investigation finally uncovered the truth. FBC Director Morgan Lansdale was behind the engineering of T-Abyss in order to create a dangerous viral weapon for IL Veltro. Providing 3 ships to transport their cargo to Terra Grigia, he unleashed a biohazard on board, wiping out IL Veltro, then used the 2 remaining ships for classified vaccine research. Once the vaccine was finished, a second biohazard was unleashed, killing the researchers, leaving Queen Zenobia and Queen Semiramis unmanned. Realizing they had uncovered the truth, Lansdale himself, watching the pair on a monitor, triggered Queen Semiramis' self-destruct system and expected Shiravat to do the same. When she does so, Valentine and Redfield make their escape from the sinking ship on a BSA helicopter under attack by Malakota, parasitic worms in the body of a mutant whale. Following the battle, they were given one more mission: to retrieve evidence incriminating the FBC from within the Queen Dido's wreckage. During their exploration, the 2 found a section of the ship with breathable air, the few remaining unflooded hallways being home of IL Veltro leader Jack Norman for the past year. The FBC had, however, already beaten them to the ship, Norman infected himself with another sample of T-Abyss virus and turned into a powerful monster dubbed Ultimate Abyss. The BSA agents could not persuade Norman that they were not FBC and were forced to kill him in order to retrieve the evidence, which they found to be recordings of I.L. Veltro's meetings with Lansdale, proving that he had provided them with the virus. The evidence was transmitted to the BSA's UK headquarters during an FBC raid, and Lansdale was immediately arrested by his own men. Following Lansdale's arrest, the FBC was dissolved and all of its personnel and resources were merged into BSA and was reformed as a United Nations counterterrorism organization with greater jurisdiction around the world. Valentine then became a special operations agent, and throughout her partnership with Redfield, the duo became engaged in various operations, including bioterrorism interdiction in Asia, destroying bioweapon laboratories in South America, and arresting traffickers in Europe. In 2006, the BSA received intelligence revealing the location of Oswell E. Spencer. Spencer was the CEO of Umbrella Pharmaceuticals and had gone underground to hide from a global manhunt led by the U.S. and Russian governments. Valentine and Redfield were assigned to raid the Spencer estate and arrest him, hoping he would have information useful in the separate manhunt for Albert Weskier. Upon entering the main hall, they found Lord Spencer's bodyguards dead, having been brutalized by a then unknown third party. A search underground revealed a dungeon where numerous prisoners had been experimented on or left to die, with BOWS called Blobs left to roam the dungeon. Returning to the castle above, the two gained entry into the library, finding Spencer dead, having been murdered by Weskier. The two agents fought him, though he held the upper hand due to his superhuman abilities. Believing Redfield close to death, Valentine charged at Weskier, throwing him herself out the library window and down a cliff. BSA reinforcements conducted a thorough search of the area, but found no sign of Valentine or Weskier, and on November 23, 2006, they were both declared dead in absentia. Valentine's name was listed on the BSA's list of martyrs, a record of fallen soldiers. Though badly injured by the fall down the cliff, Valentine was kept alive by Weskier, kept in a comatose condition at Tricell Incorporated, Africa's top-secret BOW research outpost near Kijiji. Following his own experiences with talking to Spencer, Weskier began work on the Ouroboros Project, a doomsday project which he believed would force evolution on survivors via a progenitor strain dubbed Ouroboros. The prototype version of Ouroboros was fatal to all the infected, making it impractical for use. Nonetheless, Valentine was slated in Weskier's vengeful plan to be the very first test subject of the completed Ouroboros in the future. During preliminary examination of her body, it was discovered that the vaccination she received in 1998 for her T-virus infection had not totally immunized her. A mutant strain of the virus had in fact laid dormant in her body for the past 8 years, and had activated during her time in a coma. Valentine's body quickly fought off the mutant virus and created new highly pure antibodies. This anomalous resistance made her worthless as an early-stage test subject, though she was spared for further study. Weskier theorized that exposure to Valentine's antibodies would give way to an Ouroboros strain more tolerable to human body, and kept her alive as a living factory to derive the antibodies from her blood by administering the T-virus to her. In her medically induced stasis, Valentine's hair became blonde and skin whitened. As work on Ouroboros continued, constant monitoring on Valentine was no longer required, and she was released from captivity. Weskier desired her for further scientific use, and made her a test subject for the P-30 project, a counterpart to Tricell's Plaga project, which intended to create super soldiers with enhanced strength, susceptible to suggestion. The drawback to P-30 was that the drug, derived from progenitor research, was quickly metabolized and excreted. As Tricell had no data on the effects of a long-term trial, a specially manufactured device was attached to her chest to periodically inject her with the drug. Now under Weskier's control, Valentine was informally added to the emerging partnership between Weskier, Excella Gian, and Ricardo Irving. As the Ouroboros project reached completion, and Tricell made plans to carry out, Irving made use of the Kijiji Autonomous Zone as a test bed for bioweapons. Starting in summer 2008, the Napaya tribe were implanted with Type 3 plagas as test subjects, and by the start of 2009, people within the city of Kijuju itself were made hosts of the Type 2 purchased by rebels, who sought to use them as a recruiting tool for an insurrection. In March 2009, spies within the BSA reported to Tricell that there would be an active investigation in Kijuju. Valentine was ordered to protect Irving in his planned business dealings. At a warehouse the BSA knew Irving was to use, she left behind a Kijujuan man, abducted and forcibly infected with Ouroboros. The mutant massacred the BSA's Alpha team, and she and Irving escaped to a nearby quarry to continue the deal. This deal ultimately never took place, however, and Irving would order the release of the BOW specimens to fight the BSA. When an S-Way team consisting of Chris Redfield and Shiva Alomar cornered Irving, Valentine set off a smoke bomb and escaped with him to Irving's oil field. At the oil field, Valentine gave Irving an ultimatum. He knew too much to allow his capture by the BSA, nor could the BSA be allowed to track their departure from the oil to the Tricell facility. Over the next day, Irving rigged the oil field with bombs to be set off if the BSA caught up with them. In the event the pursuit continued, Irving was provided with a dominant species plaga egg to inject into his own body. When the BSA tracked him down at the oil field, Valentine made her escape on a speedboat, leaving Irving to fight Redfield, Shiva, and Captain Josh Stone. Arriving at a cave system, Valentine made her way through the old ruins of the Napaya Kingdom and towards Tricell's facility, meeting up with Westgear at what was once the palace of Napaya Kings, to which they would gain passage to the coast, where a Tricell tanker was waiting to pick them up. Redfield and Alomar, who were in pursuit of Gian, also reached this palace. To buy time for Gian, Westgear and Valentine began fighting the two BSA agents, relentlessly pursuing them across the palace. After 7 minutes, Westgear ran out of time and caught up with Gian, leaving Valentine behind to deal with them. Realizing the device on her chest was affecting her behavior, the two forced Valentine to ground and ripped it out. Still weak from the fighting, Valentine stayed behind and urged the two to continue on. After passing out, Valentine was found by Stone, who had separated from Redfield and Alomar to radio BSA HQ. Having returned with helicopter backup, Valentine warned him about the tanker and agreed to come with him, as a helicopter was their only means to intercept it. Moving through the train yard near the dock, Valentine found a radio station and called to the tanker, succeeding in picking up Redfield. She informed him of a vulnerability of Westgear's she learned about during her captivity. He requires regular injection of PG67A/W, and that an overdose would be lethal. Valentine and Stone were chased by increasing numbers of Majini, forcing their assigned helicopter pilot, Doug, to pick them up much closer than planned. Though they made it onto the helicopter, Doug himself was killed when rebel forces carrying rocket launchers made their move. At Valentine's urging, Stone piloted the helicopter away from the dockland in search of the tanker. Flying out to sea, the pair spotted a high-altitude stealth bomber take off from the tanker, lose control, and crash into a volcano. Flying over to investigate, Valentine helped pick up Redfield and Alomar, who were fighting Westgear, himself mutated from Ouroboros infection. Supplying the two with RPG-7s, they succeeded in killing the bioweapons developer. After returning from Africa, Valentine was taken into a BSA lab to undergo various tests due to her long-time viral exposure and drug overdoses. It was revealed that the side effects of the T-virus affected the cell division in her body, which suppressed her physical deterioration but left her with psychological after effects. Valentine emailed Burton about her boredom from the tests, saying that she was eager to get back out into the field once her rehabilitation was completed. She also gave him some advice on how to make peace with his older daughter Moira and hoped to receive a return party in style. She and Redfield asked Burton to join BSA, which he eventually accepted. After a long period of observation and rehabilitation, she resumed her career. 6 years after Kijuju Autonomous Zone incident, Valentine completed her rehabilitation and returned to the field, however, still suffering from the psychological aftereffects from the P30 drugs and maintaining the heavy guilt during her time under Westgear. Valentine started to develop a desire to atone for her actions and expressed it through reckless actions, much to Redfield's concern, who had noticed her changed behavior. In San Francisco, California, There had been reports of victims becoming mysteriously infected with no means of transmission and attacking others who quickly succumbed to their injuries instead of reanimation. The BSA took interest and partnered with the San Francisco Police Department in a joint investigation with Valentine, and Redfield acting as lead agents on the case. When another case occurred, Valentine investigated a couple's homestead, despite Redfield's orders to wait for backup, and cut off her comms. She quickly discovered the mutilated corpse of a woman before being attacked by her zombified husband, countering the attack and neutralizing him. Redfield and SAP's SWAT swiftly broke into the home and discovered a bloody Valentine whom he berated for her reckless actions. However, she justified the possibility of survivors diminished every seconds passed and acted immediately. The pair left the scene with the house cleared and corpses taken in for further analysis. Valentine retreated to the shooting range, where Redfield expressed his desire of removing her from further participation due to his growing concerns, but she firmly declined the notion. Valentine recounted her years under Weskier's control and wanted her friends dead and compared it to a living nightmare. Redfield told her of Piers Nivens, who he had intended to take over before he sacrificed himself to save him. As the war on terror continued, Redfield warned her not to let the numbness reach her soul, lest she lost herself in the fight. But Valentine looked at the present mission. Innocent people were being made to kill as she once had been, and wanted whoever was responsible to be taken to justice, and could not allow to think of herself. Before Redfield could elaborate, she resumed her activities. In the BSA laboratory, Valentine and Redfield meet Claire Redfield, who had been conducting her own investigation into the orca carcass that washed ashore on the beach, and BSA advisor Rebecca Chambers to discuss their findings. Claire discovers a chipped orca had been swimming around Greater Farallone's National Marine Sanctuary, where several whales had disappeared near the vicinity of Alcatraz Island. Similarly, the orca was infected with the same strain of T virus found in the victims, confirming a link. Finding their next lead, Valentine and the Redfields ventured to the site, while Chambers remained behind to create vaccines to counter the new strain and acted as their liaison. At Alcatraz, Valentine and the group's movement were monitored by the mastermind behind San Francisco serial murders. The tourists were quickly turned and attacked others, much to their confusion. The three try to save the remaining tourists, with Valentine attempting to save a prison guard who fall into the sewage tunnel. However, their efforts were futile, as they were left as sole survivors. Valentine explored the sewers, where she is ambushed by Leon Scott Kennedy, whose mission has led him there. The two recognize each other and were confronted by infected tourists before facing against hordes of amphibian lickers. The pair failed to conceal themselves and alerted the horde. As the two made their escape, Kennedy cleared out the horde with the use of explosives. Advancing further into the tunnel, which was used to transport ammunition during Alcatraz's day as a military outpost, Valentine and Kennedy share information on their respective missions and determine their cases were linked. Sensing a draft, Kennedy exposed a secret access way leading to the armory where liquor larvae were incubating. They discover blueprints for the mosquito drones, which had been infecting people in prison and city. Knowing they were nearby, the mastermind beckoned them to the prison cells where they held the Redfields captive. Rushing to the compound, Valentine and Kennedy were reunited with the siblings, who were experiencing worsening symptoms of the virus, and another survivor whom Kennedy identified as Dr. Antonio Taylor, a lead robotics engineer who sold classified information to foreign entities outside of USA. The masterminds revealed themselves to be the former mercenary Dylan Blake and Maria Gomez, with the former revealing his intention to punish corporations, organizations, and agencies that benefited from bioterrorism, including DSO, BSA, and TerraSave, without working towards ending bioterror. He plotted to release drones that carried doses of T-virus across the world, leaving him to control which individuals to become infected and clean the world's slate. In proving his point justice did not exist, Blake spared Valentine of infection, but forced her to live through his experience, and forced to shoot Claire or let Taylor die at the former's hands. Unwilling to make a decision, Valentine firmly held her gun point at Blake, who fatally shot Taylor in return, much to her fury, only to be incapacitated by Gomez. Finding an opening, Kennedy tossed a flashbang, allowing Valentine to fight Gomez off and venture to the sewers. In the sewers, Valentine met Chambers, who pursued the group with newly created vaccine in hand. She directed Chambers to the infected group and asked her to tell the others of her location. Valentine goes after Blake to try to stop the release of the drones. Outside the armory, she confronted Blake, who proclaimed his intention and his desire for atonement of his actions before infecting himself and fused with shark BOW Megalodon, emerging as a giant monster. After Chambers cured the group of their affliction, they reconvened with Valentine and face off against the beast. Valentine took an experimental next-generation plasma rifle and asked Redfield and Kennedy to distract it while waiting for Rifle to charge to its full capacity. After the pair's successful distraction, Valentine fired the bolt, separating it from its lower half, but did not kill the beast as it continued its rampage. As Kennedy and Redfield came to her aid, Chambers successfully gained control of the drones and redirected them towards Blake, severely weakening him. Blake intended to escape through the open waters, but Valentine distracted long enough for Redfield and Kennedy to assemble the rocket launcher. As they finished, Valentine called out Blake for his inability to deal with his guilt, which triggered the creature, and dove into the waters where she strapped the bag of grenades in its mouth, but was temporarily strangled by its straps. Kennedy and Redfield fired the weapon onto the chains, pinning the creature by the neck. Valentine set off the grenades and dealt the killing blow. The group celebrated their successful efforts as they prevented another outbreak from occurring. Outside, the group reminisced about their time before reinforcement arrived and evacuate the survivors off the premises, with Redfield happy her old self is back, to which he shared the same sentiment.